All right, okay. I'd like to call today's Finance Committee meeting to order, November 10th, 2025. It is 5:31 p.m. Smith, Davis, Berg, and Sachs are here, so we do have a quorum.
Watch that cord. Thank you.
Missing Lampy right now. Okay, first up on the agenda, Finance Committee minutes from October 27th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, a motion by Davis,
Second.
second by Smith. Any questions or comments on it? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Next, we have public comment. Anybody wishing to speak on agenda items have up to 3 minutes. Just state your name and address. Okay. Seeing none, move on. Under business, A, view and take action, 2026 to 2027 service agreement between the city of Watertown, Wisconsin and the Watertown Humane Society.
I'll make a motion to approve this agreement with the Humane Society.
Okay, motion by Davis. Second by Smith. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Berg?
Actually, Mayor Stocks, this is a 3% increase over previous year.
Yeah, it'd be a 3% just for a 2-year cycle. So 3% this year and it would stay exactly the same, no percent increase for the year after.
So it's like 1.5.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
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 Yeah. I like to be on the side of saving money, but I will tell you that the improvements they've made at that Humane Society to enlarge and improve that facility were impressive. And just like the fire department's got a larger area of operation, this Humane Society now, because of their new facility, larger facility, it's actually an enlarged facility from what they had, is taking on more utility, taking on more operational cost to just continue to operate at that larger, nicer facility. So I know they're doing quite well on fundraising, and they should, because that program is a municipal program and it reflects on our city if it's doing its job in a good way. And I'm a pet lover. I think a lot of people are, and I think we benefit by having good programs, good departments that are doing their job in a commendable way. And I want to compliment them on the improvements they've made to their facility, but the 1.5% a year is being obviously on the side of very frugal. And I can only hope they can do well on fundraising to take care of obvious increases in cost that are part of their operation. But I'm in favor as long as they've apparently agreed to it.
Okay. Yeah, we had a meeting with them last week, I believe. So this is the last, getting your approval is all we need to do yet. Yeah, I'll go to council after, but, okay. Anybody else? Okay,
I just wanted to say, I believe this is the amount we budgeted in the 2026 budget, right?
correct. I believe to the penny. Mr. Stevens put that exact
Right.
amount in there. So yeah, we're hopeful it get that way. Yeah. Okay. No further question. We'll take a roll on that. Davis, Berg,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
and I vote yes. Okay, thank you. Next under B, review and take possible action, 2025 stormwater utility rate study update.
All right, thank you. The city has contracted with our stormwater consultant, Rickard and Milky, to complete a 2025 stormwater utility best practice review and rate update. The last time rates were updated was in 2020. Since then, operating expenses have grown by about 3.6% a year, and capital needs have increased following the 2024 flood control study, infrastructure projects, and MS4 permit compliance projects. So About midway through 2025, we brought Rooker to Milky on board. There was a lot of review that went into a draft study at the staff level before it went to our Public Works Commission for initial review. The way our ordinance is structured, Chapter 453-7C, the Finance Committee of the Council, in consultation with the Public Works Commission, make a recommendation to the council concerning the utility budget, service charges, and expenditures. So the rates first went to Public Works Commission for that initial review. The initial review from Public Works Commission, Rooker to Milky was tasked with making some revisions to the 3 recommendations in the study. Those recommendations came back last month, and at that meeting, Public Works Commission approved revised alternative 2, which is a balanced approach, about $14.5 million over 10 years in capital, with some project deferrals and then a modest reduction in operating costs with that alternative. And I guess to take a step back, the 3 alternatives, just really high level. Alternative 1 proposed by Rooker to Milky was more or less a stay the course option where everything kind of previously approved in the 2020 rate study was carried forward, including capital projects, equipment replacement, and other operating expenses. Alternative 2, which we refer to as a balanced approach, deferred some of that equipment replacement. It reduced the operating budget by about $100,000. And then the flood control study, we'd be looking at about 40 years to implement the recommendations thereof. Alternative 3 made further reductions to our operating budget and then deferred some additional equipment purchases and capital projects. So alternative 2 is where Rooker to Milky landed with the recommendation, and we concurred with the staff as something we were comfortable bringing forward to the Public Works Commission for review and potential approval. So there's a financial impact section in the packet. The average single-family home property user under alternative 2 would see an increase of between $11 and $12 per year. The packet shows an $18 to $39 household increase. That should read about $11 to $12. $11.52, thank you. Other larger property owners would see kind of proportional increases based on their equivalent runoff unit assignments. So that is how much impervious surface area, rooftops, parking lots, things like that they have on their property, they would be charged accordingly. Alternative 2 from Rooker to Milky is a multi-year approach. So 2026, the proposed increase is 9%. We would see similar 9% increases in 27, 28, and 29 under this proposal, followed by more inflationary type increases in years following. This was at the direction of the Public Works Commission for another rate study earlier this year that was carried through to this study and the methodology. So staff is seeking approval in the form of an ordinance revision as selected by Public Works Commission to take to Common Council to update the rates of the stormwater utility 9% in accordance with alternative 2 as proposed by Rooker to Milky. And this is just scratching the surface, but I'm happy to answer questions. Alder Berg, you had asked at our Finance Committee meeting for 2026 budget on the fund balance. And right now we're showing a rather healthy fund balance. I think the question was, can we draw that down to fund some of the projects? We brought this up with Rooker to Milky. We have used, it's the American Water Works Association, or AWWA metric, of keeping 100% in fund balance based on our operating expenses. So 100% of our operating expenses is the metric we should be keeping in fund balance. We discussed this with R&M. We'd be reducing that. They were comfortable reducing that 100% metric down to about 80 to 94%, but kind of building that back up over time to maintain that 100% fund balance. That was kind of where they felt comfortable with. And Alder Davis, you had mentioned at that meeting, some of the projects we had coming down the pike that were supported with not only next year's budget, but I think these rates. So there are a few key areas. One is the annual street program, our street and utility projects. This would support a lot of the capital projects we've been planning for years. It would also be supporting some of the larger capital projects identified in the flood control study of 2024. The large one in the next 5 years kind of coming down the pike is the Hart Street flood control study. So design, any land acquisition needed there, and then construction. We'd also be looking to replace some of our aging fleet. Right now, we're scheduled to replace one piece of equipment every year under alternative 2. So I think those are the key areas. Maureen, if I'm missing anything, please, fill in the gaps there.
Just that, yeah, just that we also have the MS4 permit coming out. According to DNR, that is to be public noticed early next year. There'll be another 5-year permit. We do anticipate our TMDL requirements to be increased or a little bit more that we'll have to do as compared to the past 5 years. So that's part of what we've built into this also. Some of the operations costs, we're trying to balance the future permit requirements with what we need to do.
Well, Mr. Smith.
If you're, or one of the goals you have is to increase the fund balance, it looks like the actual recommendation you have, this option 2, actually reduces costs in the early years and increases costs in 29 and 30 over what the, I guess, rate study was recommending. Isn't that also going to make your increase of the fund balance slower?
That's a good question. My understanding is initially we'd be dipping into that fund balance. Right now, we're above the metric identified by Rupert and Milky, that 100%. We're above that slightly right now. So I think in the earlier years to kind of counter that lower initial monthly rate increase, we'd be dipping into the fund balance, lowering it below that 100% to maybe that 80 to 90% range. And then in the later years, 27, 28, 29, we'd be building that back up.
So when the, excuse me, Public Works Commission reviewed this, was that review prior to the return of the 3 alternatives, or was it after 3 alternatives were presented and they adopted or recommended alternative 2?
Good question. Both. So we had our initial review with Public Works Commission with Rupert and Milky's initial suggestion, the 3 alternatives initially recommended. Public Works Commission wanted to see those initial rates flattened out, so not as large of increases. And that's kind of where we landed on the 9% increases over the next 4 years. So they took an initial stab at it. Rupert and Milky went back, sharpened their pencils, brought the recommendations back with that more flat, the flattened rate structure. And that's ultimately what Public Works Commission reviewed and approved.
And when they did that final review, was the recommendation from the Plan Commission unanimous?
Public Works.
Excuse me, Public Works Commission, thank you.
Yes,
It was
Yeah.
unanimous?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, let me understand again, Andrew or Maureen. So we, on our budgets we got for each of the departments under stormwater, you're showing, at least from, for the year that we're going into, that you have expenses of roughly $3,500, $3,500,000, and you have revenues of $2,500,000, a difference of almost $1 million.
Correct.
Yeah, and this rate increase, if it's put into effect, does that reflect in these numbers that we have for you to generate off of the utility fee? You're looking at $1,225,000 for residential, and you got 500,000 for commercial. You have different categories of how you're identifying customers, but each of them have different projected revenues that you're coming in for next year. These don't reflect the dollars that are going to be generated from the increase you're proposing?
They do not. However, Rupert and Milky did take into account expenditures from 2026 as proposed in creating these rate suggestions. So the numbers that you're referencing are baked into the rates that we're reviewing this evening.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of money to work with. You're spending, it looks like in this department, in this category, you're spending, $3.5 million is a pretty sizable amount of expenditure to generate. And an increase is an increase. Now, let me understand too, you're projecting or proposing that we have an increase of 9% each year for 4 years?
That's correct.
Yeah. And the impact of each of these increases, the 9%, it was showing on that one example going from a single family, it was going from $12.52 per month to roughly $13.50. So roughly $1 increase per month in that example
Yes.
for each. So, I mean, it's like everything. It sounds somewhat harmless to do it. But when you look at the dollars you have to work with, I think it's pretty sizable amounts of expenditure you have at your discretion for spending, and I'm just a little on the side of being critical of this authorization for additional spending. I know you've got the demands on you as far as addressing things at the state level that you have to comply with, Maureen, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've been working on you familiar with the TMDL goals that we have to reduce pollutants in our stormwater. That is a 5-year permit. This past permit expired about a year ago. So we've been waiting anxiously for the new permit so we know exactly what's going to be in it. The indications are that we'll have to do about twice as much effort in our water quality projects and our stormwater ponds and, our water quality trading and trying to reduce the pollutants going to the waterways as we have in the past 5 years. So I told Andrew earlier, I felt we were being somewhat aggressive in what we were doing, but then compared to what the next permit is going to require, yeah, we're going to have to do more. In addition, we've also picked up a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance of publicly owned, city-owned BMPs, publicly owned storm sewer that we've really increased to try to negate some of the flooding complaints that we've been getting. So we've been able to open up some of the storm pipe where it was clogged. We've been able to replace culverts. We've been able to go in there and do the maintenance of our city-owned BMPs so that they are able to contain that 100-year event as our ordinance requires. But without maintenance, it's not meeting the requirements that they were designed to. So we picked up a lot on the maintenance, and then that flood control plan also has a lot of recommendations on how to handle some of the flooding that we get regular complaints on. However, beyond the permit compliance, which is kind of a gotta do, and the maintenance is kind of a gotta do, we've been trying to strategically attack and spread out the flood control design, the flood control practices, considering to fund it with debt so that we can move forward some of these improvements that, based on what we hear from the public, they're needed improvements.
So when we approve this budget, at least as a finance committee, with an expected type of imbalance of almost $1 million, and you say these increases were already baked into the numbers that we're looking at here, you're telling us that you expect to have your expenses over revenues by about $1 million yet at the end of next year?
No, the 2026 revenue, as presented and submitted and as part of the 2026 budget does not include an increase. So that gap of $1 million will be reduced. However, Ruger and Milky and their financial modeling, in setting these proposed rates did anticipate some kind of an increase, to the rates. So that's kind of what was baked into that analysis.
Anybody else? Mr. Smith?
Okay, you mentioned that the components that are part of this analysis, which result in these recommendations, is an inflation adjustment and the additional amount you're trying to recoup for fund balance and to have available for future major stormwater projects. What percentage of the increase we're looking at, and let's just take the 9% increase years, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 36%. Is the inflation factor only prospective? In other words, you're looking down the road and you're saying inflation is going to be X amount and you're factoring that in? Or is there any element of inflationary recoupment that is part of that?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have that answer for you tonight, but it's something I can certainly follow up with Ruger and Milky on. Just so I'm clear, the question is the inflation forward looking into the future, or are we recouping funds through the rates as proposed here? Is that correct?
Right. And then, or maybe it would just be fair and it would be getting at what I'm really looking for, which is what is the total inflationary factor that is being added into this proposed 5-year rate increase? I mean, it's X amount? Without regard whether it's any recoupment or whether it's all prospective and what's that based on. The point is, there's some amount of this proposed increase that is inflationary, and then I'm assuming the rest of it is to build a fund balance and to have available for future projects. I'm just wondering what that inflationary component is that's factored into this.
Okay.
Do we know that one?
I don't, Maureen, do you know that one offhand?
I don't. I was just texting our consultant to find out. I think as we were talking through the study, they really landed on a 4% inflation, forecasting that into the future. They also had a chart that they provided that showed 2020 through 2026. And again, they used that kind of average 4% inflation rate as opposed to the actual, when it kind of was a little higher here, and I don't want to say lower, but not as high in another year. So I think in their mind, as they're forecasting out and trying to find a good conceptual number, they're looking at a 4% annual inflation rate. However, I'm not sure that's answering your question, so I'll stop talking.
Okay, and just one last question. Assume for a minute that there is no inflationary factor. What is the amount that you're building into the rate increases to, the nominal amount, to supplement the fund balance and to provide funds for major stormwater projects over that 5-year period? Is like there a goal you wanted 3 million, 5 million, whatever?
So 100% of our operating budget is, using round numbers, around $2 million. I know we've touched our fund balance in the last couple of years, and that prompted our auditor this past year to to flag the utility as something that we should probably look at. So that's one of the reasons that we brought R&M on board, was comments made from our auditor. We don't have that offhand, but it's something we can follow up with our consultants on to see what they know, what they can provide.
I would just add that through this process, we started trying to figure out what we thought the expenses would be for the next 10 years. We worked with our consultant. They came back with three alternatives that staff thought were completely unacceptable. So we told them that we revised the numbers, kind of looked at our projects again, tried to be strategic as to what could be done sooner, what could be done later, and sent them back. Then they came back with the first three alternatives the Public Works Commission looked at. And it was after that, the Public Works came back and said, well, this is getting there, but give us another three alternatives, revise this so it wasn't, so it was better. And it was the revisions they came back with. So we started trying to figure out what our actual costs were going to be. So we've revised that throughout the process, is why I want to say that. We don't have a number off the top of our head because that number has changed.
So from the first three proposals that were returned as totally unacceptable, you gave them the margin to pare those rate increases down for the next three alternatives by cutting the projects. In other words, certain projects were removed, so they had less amount of money they had to fund over that period.
Part of it.
And the second 5 years would be in a subsequent study? In other words, we're looking at a 10-year run-up, you said.
Correct. Yeah. We'd be looking to revisit rates in 5 years just to make sure we're tracking for that 10-year projection, but correct.
Okay, so they could be adjusted upwards, but what this study says, talking about the second 5 years, is that they will be more tied to inflation and not necessarily include a component that funds major projects, or at least beyond what the extension of the rates would be at the end of the first 5 years.
Yes. So the inflationary adjustments would fund operations and capital projects. But one thing that Public Works was clear on is they don't want to see a large increase due to not having inflationary adjustments year to year. So they would rather, they voiced that they would rather see smaller inflationary adjustments every year and not a large double-digit increase as a result of not looking at rates. So that was the direction we followed. They still want to review the rates every few years. They landed on 5 years. So that's, I think, where a lot of the structure you're seeing in the proposal comes from, was the direction we got from the commission.
Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Going to make a motion to approve the 2025 stormwater utility rate study update.
You had put down possible action, so that works.
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion by Davis to approve the study. Second by Smith. Okay. Any further discussion on it?
Yeah, I think a little bit more, Mayor. Again, Andrew has just indicated, and you've both indicated that the projected need for dipping into the fund balance is going to be much different than what we have in our budget sheet that we approved, tentatively approved as a finance. We are not going to have that kind of a need for going into the fund balance right now. We're showing that at the end of this year, we're going to have about $3 million that's in that kind of an account. And you're saying you want to have a year of expenditures available in that type of a fund as accessible money for?
Correct. The metric the utility has used since its inception was the AWWA recommendation of having 100% of your operating expenses available in fund balance in case something emergency comes up that you need to address.
Yeah. And but you're also indicating that you're going to probably move that down to less than 100%, an 80% or some number less than that. That's going to be your intent.
For a period of time, but later, over the next 5 years, it'll be reduced less than 100, but it'll be built back up to 100%, between
you know,
2032 and
You know,
35.
we'll know at the end of next year how this increase is impacting on the projected revenues, but there's a lot of potential unknowns here, and I think when you look at, like Alderperson Smith indicated over a 5-year period, you've got a 41% increase as far as the cumulative impact of these annual increases of 9%. Now, it was a mistake to have a freeze of not doing it for 5 years, but then to try to correct that by this level of increase is even though on an individual property owner, it looks like it's potentially harmless, it's just another increase along with people at the commercial level and at other levels of operation. They will pay more for their cost, and it'll just be one of many things that contributes to an increase that will be a challenge for some people. So I'm bothered by the mistake you made of 5 years, but then to try to fix it by doing this approach, even though it apparently is more moderate than what you were initially suggesting. You've made it a bit more temperate than earlier intended, but I struggle with this, and I just look at a lot of revenue being available for spending, and a lot of it is for very obvious good uses, but I'm going to do my homework between now and voting on this later as a council, but at the moment, I don't feel good about it.
Good. Do you have a question, Mr. Smith?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
I think, and I suspect this is in part your own initiative, and it certainly seems like the Public Works Commission was moving in this direction. But for whatever reason, we ended up, notwithstanding the AWWA recommendation of the 1-year fund balance, we were down around 80%. This proposal over this 5-year period is going to cut that deficit, not completely, but it's going to move us to the mid-90s, which means when you look at the next 5-year period, what the impact on the cash balance is going to result in is exactly what the summary was talking about, which is more of an inflation factor rather than an inflation and an enhanced capital infusion of money. So you're going to go from the mid-90s, 94% to 100%, a 6% increase over the second 5 years, whereas the first 5 years is about 11%. Which seems to me exactly the way you should be proceeding, not excessively, but front-loading the detriment that we're in with a fund balance at 80%. So I think you're on track. I think you're doing it the right way. And I think we have the prospect of having a better projection for the second 5 years than we have in remedying the problem right now.
Okay. Speak a vote. Davis,
Aye.
Berg,
I know.
Smith,
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Last year it was raised was 2019, is that right?
The study was done in 2019, rates were raised in 2020.
Okay, water bill was exactly the same year? Something about,
It was close. I don't know if it was the exact year, but it was around there.
okay, thank you. Sorry, my computer away. All right, next C, review and take possible action, approve step adjustments for water systems employees.
Hey, thank you. Some background, I have my summary. These are the non-exempt employees who complete the professional certifications and licensings related to their job are eligible for the step placement according to our policy. What you have here is a list of the employees. This time around, they're all in one. After discussion with Andrew and the mayor, we put it in this format instead of having 7 different agenda items. So we have Jake Niels with the wastewater team, who got the wastewater disinfection certification, eligible for 1 step, moving from a grade H step 9 to grade H step 10. Jay Perkel, member of the wastewater team, who has passed the wastewater biological solids and sludge certification from the DNR, would move from a grade F step 8 to a grade F step 9. Peter Brunner, who is on the water team and is one of our water system operators who has the dual job of water and wastewater responsibilities, has passed the general wastewater, which is the first test you need to get any of the other ones, or you are not eligible to get any other one. And also the sanitary sewer collection system. So those are 2 steps, would move from a grade J step 4 to a grade J step 6. And then we have Ryan Miller, a member of our water team, who went through the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services cross-connection control tester surveyor certification. And this is part of our cross-connection control program, which is in our codes and administered by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Ryan is eligible for 1 step from a grade J step 3 to a grade J step 4. Ed Groves, who is on the water team, has passed 3 tests, where he also took the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services cross-connection control tester and surveyor certification, again, to satisfy our cross-connection program. Ed has also met the above requirements for 2 steps, getting his water, DNR water, groundwater, and distribution certifications. So the cross-connection, groundwater, and distribution, all related to water. Ed Groves would move from a grade J step 1 to a grade J step 4. Nathan Pate, our newest employee on the water team, has met the requirement for 1 step, also passing the Wisconsin Department of Safety Professional Services cross-connection control tester surveyor certification. And so Nathan also has met the above for obtaining there was a typo here. It's not groundwater, it's distribution certification offered by the Wisconsin DNR. So that is 2 steps. And he would go from a grade J step 1 to a grade J step 3, G, sorry. And then Alyssa Klink, our newest wastewater team member, has passed the general wastewater, again, the very first one you need to get any of the other ones. And 1 step for Alyssa, moving from a grade K step 1 to a grade K step 2. And I would like to add that all these employees have these steps in as their performance reviews and annual performance checks. We do have these as some of their goals, including our newest employees, Ed, Nathan, and Alyssa, as part of their offers of the job and the understanding that they need these certifications. So they're in their 3- and 6-month performance reviews and 1-year review. We are asking our staff to get these certifications for the jobs that they're doing. So if approved as written here, other than the 1 typo for Nathan on groundwater versus distribution, I would ask that these would be retroactive to the current beginning pay period of October 29th. So I'm looking for approval. I do recommend approving the step increases for the 7 employees as listed above.
Everything else was correct with Nathan? Just
Yes, Andrew had emailed me and I believe Mark Stevens caught that. I do have included with the employees their sheets showing this, and that is correct. He did pass the distribution and not the groundwater test.
Okay, Ms. Davis?
So I guess my first question is, as you mentioned, there are 7 staff members who are here being presented tonight for having passed these exams. What was the impetus for all 7 of them to take these exams on October 10th? I don't think I remember seeing such a large number of staff members.
No, they changed the exam dates in the DNR. Previous, coming out of COVID, it was an online test, and then the DNR hired a company, and it didn't work out well. And they had some staffing issues, and then you could only take a test once or twice a year, and then they're grouping it now quarterly. And with the understanding previously of bringing one here and then another one, we asked staff to all take the tests at the same time so that we could come to one meeting and align it that way to save us from doing it multiple times through the year. So that's the reason why you see this many coming at once.
So as a follow-up, roughly how much are these exams, just roughly?
So the
Like
exams,
$50, $100?
well, the DSPS, the cross connection one, you have to take a 40-hour course for that. And the 40-hour course, after that, you have to take a hands-on exam. That one's more expensive than the DNR ones. And I don't have that
Well, that's okay.
right in front of me, but I want to say they're $35 or $55 per DNR exam. And once you pass these exams and obtain a certification, you are now subject to continuing education to maintain your certification level. So throughout the year, you have to go to classes and training and things like that, like actual hands-on pumps and maintenance and whatever relates to that specific certification.
So my last question is, three of the individuals took an exam and did not pass the exam.
Correct.
So do they, what's the time frame for them to repeat that? Do they need to wait till the next quarter? Would that be next year?
It would be in the first quarter of next year,
Okay,
and they pay for that up front.
the individual does?
It does, and then we reimburse based on our policy. If they don't pass it, they're out the money.
So we only reimburse if they pass?
Yes.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Berg, go ahead.
Yeah, you came earlier on the pay plan and some of your concerns and issues with your department, but these are separate issues from that, what we're hearing tonight. These presentations have to do with, again, performance-related step plan increase of that merit a salary adjustment.
This is completely separate, Mr.
Right,
Berg.
Right, okay. And so the total amount of increase, when you add up these 7, what does it do to your budget? And how do you absorb that cost?
Some of these, most of these are already included in the budget
They
that
are.
was passed for this year. When we get to this point at the end of the year, like right now, pending any changes, staying with the current policy and where we're at, certain staff members are eligible for certifications, and I attempt to put that in the budget to account for that when the budget is passed, so that when these come up, that they were accounted for already in the budget. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. And not everyone is eligible for all the tests and certifications. So depending on who it is, they might be eligible now if they pass these. Alyssa was one of the big ones. She needs 9. And we're giving her a year to obtain half of those and another year to get the other half. Because they do take a lot of time in studying, and sometimes you need to actually go to the training first to take the test. So when I take a guess, I'm like, well, for Alyssa being a new hire next year, I think I put 4 or 5 in the proposed budget. So, and again, Ed is close to being done. So when he was hired, new hires may not be necessarily accounted for, but we usually have a gap in a vacancy before we fill it. So when we get to the end of the year right now, It is later in the year. There won't be a major impact on the budget. They were supposed to be accounted for in the past budget for 2025. Obviously, we've had some staffing changes, so not everybody here was on the payroll when we began the year. But overall, the impact
Yeah,
is.
so it's
is,
not going to really have much. I went to the Moose Lodge for fish fry on Friday, and one of your employees was there, and I'm not telling you who it was, obviously, but all I can tell you is that you get compliments from your people for being an advocate for them as an administrator, and that's a nice compliment. It doesn't always come from people in your position. You look out for your people, and obviously the fact that you're here making the case for them and you've consistently done that is a good reflection on you. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Smith, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve for these 7 individuals, the recommended increases we've been discussing.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Smith. Second by Berg. Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. Obviously you were making a petition for a much broader and probably much more comprehensive adjustment for compensation at one of our earlier meetings. And this is somewhat distinct, you said, but will you be coming back with with whatever the remaining amount is that you feel is deficient in compensation?
I'm not sure I can answer that question tonight for you, Mr. Smith. Andrew, Mayor Stocks?
I could say that if you're talking about the new pay scale, Mr. Smith, that if these people are kind of averaging another $1 an hour, so they're guaranteed to have at least 2.75% increase. So when you implement a new pay study, it might make them go over one potential spot more because the raise they were going to get might be less than 2.75. So the impact would possibly be just one more notch, take them to say step D instead of step C, something like that. New pay scale, the steps would be on letters.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is you were very commendably concerned about the status of your individuals, employees across the board. You'd come in with a proposal. We felt that was not the way for us to adjust whatever was the imbalance that you saw. And I anticipated that you would be coming back with something in the future as it related to the primary concern you had in the first presentation. I'm just wondering where that is. Is this, assuming this passes, are these 7 going to be somewhat of an offset against that broader concern you had? And will you be following up with whatever the deficiency is or the difference?
That's a great question, Mr. Smith. And I don't believe tonight is the night to discuss this. It's not on the agenda. And I would like to confer with Andrew and the mayor regarding if and when that comes back for discussion with the finance committee.
So that would be a definite maybe. Okay, I understand that. I'm just interested in putting this in the context of what we had previously heard and getting some sense of anticipation about what would be coming. So the bottom line is maybe.
Stay tuned.
I think that'd just be adjustment in January, Mr. Smith, when the new calendar year rolls around. Probably just come in front of us in January.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we had motion, Smith first. Smith,
Aye.
I vote yes. Davis?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'd just like to say one thing. I would like to echo exactly what Alderman Berg mentioned, which is I think it is extraordinarily commendable, the degree of effort you went to, the sense of equity and your commitment to the employees that you are overseeing and seeking to bring about what you feel is the just result. And I like what I'm seeing tonight. I liked what I saw previously, and I'm anticipating we'll probably have a positive discussion down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Next, D, announce tax collection changes for December 2026. Mr. Stevens is on, but if you look down at the memo by Mr. Stevens below.
I have a question for Mr. Stevens. I appreciated the memo. It's very clear as to what's going to take place. My question's kind of nuanced, but I'm wondering if when the changes are made in the future and the bills are paid through the county, is there an option for online payment that's not credit card that would just be a transfer so that there wouldn't be a fee for people when they go to pay their bill online, their property tax bill?
It's going to be subject to the counties and what they have for available payment process. Obviously, at any time, a resident can send a check, but they're going to have to send those checks to the counties instead of to the city. I don't know yet what the counties will provide by way of electronic payment methodologies, whether or not they have ACH. As I kind of mentioned in the memo, the Dodge County system isn't even in place. So I don't know what their system is. And to be honest, I didn't look to see what Jefferson County already has and whether or not an ACH payment without fee is a feasibility.
Well, as you have opportunity to persuade and have influence, I think that's going to be really important if we are moving towards that there's some sort of ACH system that doesn't have a fee attached.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, anybody else?
Paying in installments of 2 versus 3 will become more challenging for a portion of people that do like the dividing up of that payment in 3 versus 2. So it will be a little bit more of a challenge for some.
Completely out of our
Yes,
control. though.
totally agree.
I know, I understand, but I'm just making
Yep.
the comment that it will have an impact on people.
That's why
And-
I'm wanting to get the word out now, a year in advance, so that people can prepare for that change.
You're right, Mark. Thank you.
Okay. You don't need any action, do you, Mark?
No, this is informational.
Yeah, okay.
To be honest, unfortunately, the city doesn't have an option.
Yeah, okay. Okay, you can move on then, and, okay. All right, next move on to E. Convene in a closed session per 19.85 to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or it is likely to become involved. Indoor pool.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
motion by Davis, second by Berg. Okay, Davis.
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
I vote yes. Six 25. Okay. All right, back in open session. It is 6:59. Okay, that's our last item, both closed sessions, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Berg. Second by Smith. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Meeting ends at 6:59.